As Jungkook returned through Incheon's gates today, the reaction of the Korean media was telling. This was not a routine airport arrival. It was an unspoken celebration of an achievement that extended far beyond one individual. Reporters lined the terminal to capture the moment, broadcasting his return as though it were the homecoming of a champion. Fans, too, gathered to greet him, holding banners and phones aloft, their cheers echoing through the arrival hall. The energy carried a dual message. Congratulations to Jungkook, an acknowledgement of what his success abroad means for Korea's cultural influence. Airport appearances by idols are common in South Korea, but the scale and tone of today's coverage for Jungkook's return was different. For the press, his arrival represented a storyline bigger than celebrity fashion. Korean media outlets framed it as a matter of national pride. One of their most prominent artists had stepped onto one of the most competitive international stages and not only held his own, but outshined global figures. The fact that Jungkook's New York trip lasted only 2 days amplified the sense of accomplishment. In such a short time, he managed to dominate headlines, trend across platforms, and be recognized by American media as the most popular K-pop figure currently visible in their market. That level of impact usually requires months of promotions, carefully curated interviews, and extended campaigns. Jungkook's ability to condense that into a 48-hour trip demonstrated both the strength of his brand and the readiness of global audiences to embrace him. When he reappeared at Incheon, dressed in understated yet stylish attire, it was clear that his presence alone carried significance. He didn't need to make a statement. The sight of him was enough. Cameras clicked, fans cheered, and headlines were written in real time. The homecoming itself became the story, proving how tightly linked his global actions are to the pride and enthusiasm of those at home. The Calvin Klein event at NYFW was not simply another fashion showcase. It was a chance for brands to reaffirm their status in a rapidly shifting industry. For Calvin Klein, Jungkook has become more than an ambassador. He is the face of its global reinvention strategy. His role at the event reflected that positioning. Observers in New York noted that Jungkook's appearance drew a disproportionate amount of attention compared to other figures present. While Fashion Week often features Hollywood actors, models, and influencers, it was the Korean idol who commanded media space. Outlets from Vogue to entertainment-focused press highlighted his look, demeanor, and influence on the crowd. American journalists described him as the most talked-about guest, a phrase that underscored how his appeal now stretches far beyond music. This is why his return to Korea became more than a personal milestone. It marked the acknowledgement of a broader cultural phenomenon. Korean artistry is no longer a guest in global spaces. It is a leader. Jungkook's presence at Calvin Klein, his effortless ability to embody the brand's values, and the attention he garnered all fed into that narrative. Perhaps the most striking detail of Jungkook's New York visit was the response from American outlets. The US entertainment and fashion press has long been cautious in its embrace of international figures, often prioritizing domestic celebrities in coverage. Yet in the days following the Calvin Klein event, Jungkook dominated headlines. For Korean fans, seeing these headlines validated years of support. For the industry, it demonstrated the tangible results of international expansion strategies. And for Jungkook himself, it was a reminder that his reputation as an artist and influencer is no longer bound to a single genre or region. Back in Korea, fans wasted no time turning his arrival into a celebratory moment. Social platforms filled with messages of congratulations, while photos and videos of him walking through Incheon quickly became trending topics. The tone was not simply one of admiration but of collective pride. Supporters recognized that Jungkook had carried the name of Korea onto one of the world's most visible stages, and returned with recognition that strengthened their own sense of identity. The airport scene reflected that sentiment. While some fans held signs welcoming him back, others carried messages of thanks, acknowledging not just his appearance at the event, but what it represented. Their voices joined with the shutter of cameras as Korean media captured every angle, eager to present the moment to the public as evidence of success. This shared acknowledgement created a rare synergy between media and fandom. Both groups, often with different priorities, united in using Jungkook's return as an opportunity to highlight the global standing of Korean talent. What made Jungkook's New York trip particularly noteworthy was its brevity. He spent only 2 days in the city, yet the impact was substantial enough to dominate discourse for a week. This efficiency reflected both careful planning and his unique ability to maximize visibility. During his stay, he wasn't simply attending an event, he was positioning himself as a central figure in a brand's global campaign. Every step, from his arrival at JFK Airport to his entrance at the Calvin Klein showcase, was documented and amplified across international media. The compressed timeline also created a sense of urgency, making his presence feel more exclusive and his return to Korea more celebrated. When he finally stepped back into Incheon, the contrast between the short trip and the massive outcome became evident. It wasn't just about where he had been, but what he had accomplished in that limited time. His return symbolized the conclusion of a strategic mission successfully executed. The story of Jungkook's return today cannot be isolated from the broader narrative of K-pop's global rise. For years, Korean artists have worked tirelessly to break into international markets. Each milestone has been hard-earned, from appearances on American television to recognition at Western award shows. What differentiates Jungkook's success is the scale and speed with which it occurs. His ability to dominate headlines in a country as competitive as the United States within days demonstrates not only his personal appeal, but the readiness of the global market for Korean cultural exports. His return today thus represented more than personal victory. It was evidence of an evolving balance of influence in entertainment and fashion. Korean media framed it that way, emphasizing his role not just as a singer or model, but as a symbol of cultural leadership. Fans too understood this context, which is why their congratulations often included language about pride, recognition, and Korea's growing global presence. Jungkook's return sets the stage for questions about what comes next. His appearance at NYFW has already been labeled a success by both domestic and international outlets. But for an artist with his trajectory, it is unlikely to remain an isolated event. Calvin Klein will almost certainly build on the momentum, and other global brands are watching closely. In Korea, his return fuels speculation about upcoming projects, potential collaborations, and the continued integration of K-pop into mainstream fashion and entertainment spaces. For fans, it is both a celebration of what has been achieved and an anticipation of what lies ahead. The sense of pride today at Incheon Airport was not just about looking back, but also about looking forward toward opportunities that seem increasingly limitless. The response from Korean outlets has been particularly notable. Rather than limiting their coverage to entertainment sections, major news portals placed his return on their main pages. Commentators drew comparisons between his recognition in America and historical milestones in Korea's cultural exports. Television programs replayed clips of him at NYFW alongside footage of his Incheon arrival, framing it as a before and after sequence. Jungkook carrying Korea's image abroad and then returning home with honor. Analysts described his achievement as a form of soft power, noting that his influence supports Korea's global cultural strategy by reaching audiences that politics and economics alone cannot. The media's choice to frame his success this way reflects an understanding of his significance. Jungkook isn't merely an idol celebrated by fans, he is a national figure whose accomplishments abroad are viewed as collective achievements. Airport fashion has long been a cultural phenomenon in Korea, with idols using arrivals and departures as opportunities to set trends. Jungkook's return today, however, carried symbolic weight beyond clothing. While his understated yet polished look was documented in detail, the real power came from the visuals of his arrival itself. Rows of cameras flashing simultaneously created an atmosphere that resembled a press conference or award ceremony. Fans cheering in unison gave the impression of a celebration rather than a routine return. The juxtaposition of his quiet demeanor with the loud reception amplified the message. Jungkook's presence alone is enough to generate spectacle. These visuals spread quickly across platforms, ensuring that those who couldn't be physically present at Incheon still felt part of the moment. They reinforced the narrative of triumph, framing his return as both personal and collective. What sets this moment apart is the way recognition unfolded in real time. When Jungkook walked into Calvin Klein's NYFW showcase, American outlets immediately began publishing coverage. As those articles circulated, fans worldwide translated and shared them, creating an instant feedback loop. By the time he boarded his flight back to Korea, the narrative of his success was already established. Thus, his arrival at Incheon today felt less like the start of coverage and more like the culmination of a global cycle. Korean media didn't have to convince audiences of his success. They simply reinforced what was already widely known. This rare alignment of international and domestic recognition magnified the celebration, giving his homecoming a sense of inevitability and scale. Jungkook's return also raises important questions for Korea's entertainment industry. His ability to dominate headlines in America with minimal effort suggests that the infrastructure built by K-pop over the last 2 decades has reached a new maturity. Where previous generations had to fight for attention, Jungkook now enters spaces with an established foundation of anticipation. His appearance at NYFW demonstrated that international audiences are not only familiar with Korean stars, but actively interested in them. This changes the stakes for future idols, as global recognition is no longer an aspirational goal, but an expected outcome. Industry experts in Korea are already discussing how his success will influence upcoming strategies. From fashion collaborations to global music releases, the standard set by Jungkook's New York trip will likely shape decisions for years to come. One of the most striking features of today's arrival was the tone of the fans' greetings. Rather than focusing solely on excitement, many of their messages emphasized congratulations. Signs and social media posts repeatedly used words like proud, well done, and thank you. This language revealed the fans' understanding of his trip as a collective achievement. They weren't just celebrating Jungkook's personal success. They were recognizing what it meant for Korea, for K-pop, and for their own identities as supporters of a global star. The atmosphere at Incheon reflected this dual celebration: joy at seeing him again, and gratitude for the recognition he brought home. While today's focus was on his return, speculation has already begun about what comes next. Calvin Klein will undoubtedly build on the momentum of his NYFW appearance. Other fashion houses are likely to take note as well, considering the visibility and cultural relevance he brings. For Jungkook, the challenge will be balancing these opportunities with his musical pursuits. Fans are eager for new projects, whether solo releases or future group activities. His ability to seamlessly navigate fashion and music will determine how his global image evolves in the coming years. His return today hinted at this dual trajectory. As he walked through Incheon, he embodied both the role of a global fashion icon and that of a musician returning home. The intersection of these identities may define the next phase of his career. Jungkook's return to Korea after his 2-day New York trip has proven to be more than a celebrity story. It is a cultural event that reflects shifting global dynamics. The media's applause, fans' celebrations, and the broader narrative of Korean influence all converged at Incheon today, turning a routine airport arrival into a moment of national recognition. The efficiency of his trip, the amplification by fans, and the resonance of his presence at Calvin Klein's showcase highlight the extraordinary scale of his influence. What began as a fashion appearance has become a case study in how one artist can embody the aspirations of an entire nation. As cameras clicked and fans cheered, it became clear that Jungkook's journey is far from over. His New York triumph and his celebrated return mark just the beginning of a new chapter, one in which he stands not only as a Korean idol, but as a global cultural leader.